It is November 1532 in the foothills of the Andes, the land of the Incas, and a Spanish force has reached the town of Cajamarca, where it plans to confront the emperor, a man named Atahualpa. The Spaniards, led by Francisco Pizarro, are hopelessly outnumbered. They have just 168 men. The Inca army surrounding the town is 80,000 strong. Several members of Pizarro's force wrote eyewitness accounts of what happened next, and what follows is a pulling together of those testimonies.
On reaching the entrance to Cajamarca, we saw the camp of Atahualpa in the skirts of the mountains. The Indians' camp looked like a very beautiful city. They had so many tents that we were all filled with great apprehension. Until then, we had never seen anything like this in the Indies. It filled all our Spaniards with fear and confusion. But we could not show any fear or turn back. For if the Indians had sensed any weakness in us, even the Indians that we were bringing with us as guides would have killed us. So we made a show of good spirits, and after carefully observing the town and the tents, we descended into the valley and entered Cajamarca. All of us were full of fear, because we were so few in number and we had penetrated so far into a land where we could not hope to receive reinforcements. Few of us slept that night, and we kept watch in the square of Cajamarca, looking at the campfires of the Indian army. Most of the campfires were on a hillside, and so close to each other that it looked like the sky, brightly studded with stars. Everyone carried out sentry duty fully armed. So too did the good old governor, who went about encouraging his men.
Governor Pizarro sent a message to the emperor asking him to come to Cajamarca's town square for a meeting. Atahualpa was promised he'd be received like a friend and a brother.
At noon, Atahualpa began to draw up his men and to approach. Soon we saw the entire plain full of Indians, halting to wait for more Indians who kept filing out of the camp behind them. In front of Atahualpa went 2,000 Indians who swept the road ahead of him, and these were followed by the warriors, half of whom were marching in the fields on one side of him and half on the other side. First came a squadron of Indians dressed in clothes of different colours like a chessboard. They advanced, removing the straws from the ground and sweeping the road. Next came 3 squadrons in different dresses, dancing and singing. Then came a number of men with large metal plates and crowns of gold and silver. Among them came the figure of Atahualpa, in a very fine litter with the ends of its timbers covered in silver. 80 lords carried him on their shoulders, all wearing a very rich blue livery. Atahualpa himself was very richly dressed, with his crown on his head and a collar of large emeralds around his neck. The litter was lined with parrot feathers of many colours and decorated with plates of gold and silver. These Indian squadrons began to enter the plaza to the accompaniment of great songs, and thus entering, they occupied every part of the plaza. In the meantime, all of us Spaniards were waiting ready, hidden in a courtyard full of fear.
Pizarro had made his men ready to carry out an ambush, but first he sent a Spanish Dominican friar called Vicente de Valverde to confront the Inca emperor. Atahualpa had never met a Spaniard before and knew nothing of Christianity. Nevertheless, the friar was to call on him to convert to Catholicism and submit to the rule of the Spanish king.
Advancing with a cross in one hand and the Bible in the other, and going among the Indian troops up to the place where Atahualpa was, the friar thus addressed him: "I am a priest of God, and I teach Christians the things of God, and in like manner I come to teach you." Atahualpa asked for the book, that he might look at it, and the friar gave it to him, closed. Atahualpa did not know how to open the book, and the friar was extending his arm to do so when Atahualpa, in great anger, gave him a blow on the arm. Then he opened it himself, and without any astonishment at the letters and paper, he threw it away from him 5 or 6 paces, his face a deep crimson. The friar returned to Pizarro, shouting, come out, Christians! Come at these enemy dogs who reject the things of God!" The governor then gave the signal to Candia, who began to fire off the guns. At the same time, the trumpets were sounded, and the armoured Spanish troops, both cavalry and infantry, sallied forth out of their hiding places straight into the mass of unarmed Indians crowding the square, giving the Spanish battle cry, "Santiago!" We had placed rattles on the horses to terrify the Indians. The booming of the guns, the blowing of the trumpets, and the rattles on the horses threw the Indians into panicked confusion. The Spaniards fell upon them and began to cut them to pieces. Since they were unarmed, they were attacked without danger to any Christian. The cavalry rode them down, killing and wounding and following in pursuit. The governor himself took his sword and dagger, entered the thick of the Indians with the Spaniards who were with him, and with great bravery reached Atahualpa's litter. He fearlessly grabbed Atahualpa's left arm and shouted, "Santiago!" But he could not pull Atahualpa out of his litter because it was held up high. Finally, 7 or 8 Spaniards on horseback spurred on their horses, rushed upon the litter from one side, and with great effort they heaved it over on its side. In that way Atahualpa was captured. The panic-stricken Indians remaining in the square tried to flee from the square by knocking down a stretch of wall and running out onto the plain outside. Our cavalry jumped the broken wall and charged into the plain, shouting, "Don't let any escape! Spear them!" And during all this, not one Indian raised a weapon against a Spaniard. When the squadrons of Indians who had remained in the plain outside the town saw the other Indians fleeing and shouting, most of them too panicked and fled. 6,000 or 7,000 Indians lay dead. It was extraordinary to see so powerful a ruler captured in so short a time when he had come with such a mighty army. Truly, it was not accomplished by our own forces. There were so few of us. It was by the grace of God, which is great.
But historians have a less spiritual explanation for the extraordinary massacre at Cajamarca. The Incas had disastrously underestimated the audacity of the Spanish. Atahualpa seems to have felt that with his huge army he had nothing to fear from the handful of conquistadors. But they sprang their trap to devastating effect. The Inca troops had no experience of confronting guns and cannons, and they'd never seen horses. The onslaught of the Spanish cavalry would have been terrifying and impossible to withstand by men armed only with clubs.
Atahualpa's robes had been torn off when the Spaniards pulled him out of his litter. The governor ordered clothes to be brought to him, and when Atahualpa was dressed, the governor ordered Atahualpa to sit near him and soothed his rage and agitation at finding himself so quickly fallen from his high estate. The governor said to Atahualpa, "When you have seen the errors in which you live, you will understand the good that we have done you by coming to your land by order of His Majesty the King of Spain."
And Atahualpa would indeed soon understand the full implications of the coming of the Spanish. As a prisoner, he offered his captors vast amounts of gold, which his subjects duly delivered to Pizarro. But Atahualpa would never be freed. After several months, the Spanish decided to execute him, and he was strangled to death.